captives free. Peace is flowing like a river, flowing like a river, flowing out into the desert, setting all the captives free. Joy is flowing like a river, flowing like a river, flowing out into the desert, setting all the captives free. And our affirmation for Living Water Unity, together please. Living Water Unity is a thriving spiritual community inspired to embrace and share our abundant good now. I am empowered for joyful living by expressing God in each moment. And for right now, if you would mute your microphones, let's, well, in fact, I'll just go over here and do that myself. All right. So, oh, that didn't work. All right. I'm going to mute everyone. So, if you would like to talk, remember to unmute yourself. And coming back here, who would like to share the daily word this morning?
Well, I haven't done it for a while, so I'll give it a go.
Excellent.
Today's word is connection. Celebrating diversity and affirming unity, I am the presence of peace in the world. The road to world peace begins with my open-hearted acceptance of those who are different than me. Our world is vast and diverse, and its people come from a wide variety of cultures and histories. The more I learn about those whose lives differ from mine, the more I can appreciate their perspectives and empathize with their struggles. When I make the decision to understand others, I discover that judgment fades in the light of compassion. Today I sow peace through my acceptance and understanding. Peace in the world grows as I join my brothers and sisters in celebrating the glory of human diversity and affirming oneness in God. And our scripture today is from Isaiah 2:4. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. Amen.
Patrick, thank you very much. And our affirming prayer. As after we offer our affirming prayer, we'll allow each person to offer their prayers one at a time. And we will hold that prayer in our embrace of unconditional love. And I will conclude that period of consideration of the prayer, of prayerful holding with "and so it is," and inviting each of you to offer the next prayer. So acknowledging that this point that we are in right now, this time, this space, this chair, this place in our house, this is where we can commune with God. And in that awareness, we know that God is a love that has no end and a power that knows no bounds. God's healing power of divine life is restoring, healing, and revitalizing our world in this very moment. We let go of any fears or anxieties, and we affirm that all are safe, healthy, and protected. We bless all those who support us in maintaining vibrant, radiant health. And we bless We express divine life in all we think, say, and do. And we bless our global family with radiant health, peace of mind, and abundant love. Breathing into that, allowing that expression of divine love through you. And so it is. And so I invite each of you to offer any prayers that you may choose.
I'd like to offer a prayer for my neighbor Joe, who went to the hospital unexpectedly on Friday, and his wife Beverly, who just let me know that he's going to have surgery today. So, holding Joe in God's love and light, see him healthy, happy, whole, and healed, and send a lot of love, a big virtual hug to Beverly.
And so it is.
I'd like to offer a prayer for my dad, Dan Miller. A prayer of gratitude that he is settling into his new apartment. Also a prayer of health and vitality and all that is good. He has his first doctor's appointment tomorrow, so I'm praying that this will be a great experience for him.
And so it is.
I'd like to offer a prayer of thanksgiving for the new information that it looks like everyone who wants it will be able to have the vaccine by the end of May.
And so it is.
I would like to offer a prayer for a good friend of ours who just passed away recently. Known her for almost 60 years. And been a very, very good friend to both Sandy and I. And she lives out in California. She's passed on either natural causes or not due to COVID at this point that we know of.
What's her name, Dick?
Her name is Joan.
Thank you.
And so it is. I'd like to offer a prayer for several people in our congregation that are dealing with health challenges. While I may list a few, Clarence and Dee and Betty, Bert and Patrick, I am not I'm not intending to exclude anyone, but if you are also dealing with a health challenge, holding you in this crucible of unconditional love. And so it is.
I'd like to offer prayers for comfort and healing for Coletta. She's really suffering, devastated by the sudden and painful death of her younger brother, Mike.
And so it is.
I'd like to offer prayers for Gary and his family. They lost a very dear grandson, son, nephew this week. And we will be traveling to Louisiana coming soon, like Tuesday morning. And we'll join them in their memorial celebration.
What's the name?
Philip.
And so it is. Are there any other prayer requests? For all of those prayers unspoken, for all of those who are in need of prayer and may or may not be aware of it. We hold this planet with all of its inhabitants in this crucible of unconditional love. We're seeing their fears, their cares, their concerns being transformed in the awareness of the presence of God's love in their lives. And for this, together we say, Amen.
Amen.
Well, Doug, I understand you have some music that you might want to play this morning.
That I might want to play.
That you might want to play. Yeah.
All right. I'm going to try to actually play. Probably one of the first tunes I ever learned, and a lot of young players learn this tune first, by Errol Gardner, entitled Misty. But I'm going to put a medley in with another tune written by Billy Eckstine, the big band singer from that period, entitled I Want to Talk About You. The interesting thing is both of these tunes share the exact same, or almost the same, chord progression. And if anyone was present in our Jazz at the Creek when we did a presentation of contrafact, a contrafact is a tune or a melody written over a pre-existing set of chord changes from another tune. And back in the 40s and 30s, they did this quite a lot to avoid having to pay mechanical licensing and copyright fees on tunes that they didn't own. So they would write a different melody, because you can copyright melodies, but you cannot copyright chord progressions. So I don't know if that's too much information, but here's Misty and I Want to Talk About You.
And I'll remind you that if you go to speaker view, you'll see Doug in all of his glory.
And these are both in E flat for those that are keeping score. Talking to you, Clarence.
Yay! Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
Always awesome to hear you.
Thanks, Patrick.
Tit for tat, spiritually. That phrase, tit for tat, is often used as a description of a process of mutually assured destruction. More generically, perhaps a cascade of revenge. But actually, it could describe an approach of engaging compromise when the intention of the parties is to achieve a win-win. And when it does that, it can take on a spiritual context. We have been involved in renovation of our kitchen this week. It's actually the first room of a dozen rooms, or I don't know, eight or nine rooms that we're intent upon restoring to like new. Once we do that, I'm not sure what we do. It could be that we'll live in the house with the feeling of having a new house. Or it could be that we'll sell it and we'll move to Tanzania or, I don't know, Belize or maybe Berthoud. to the chagrin of Shannon and Jake. But at least we'd be close to the grandkids. In any case, we are in this process. And this process is one of compromise, right? So I thought it would be a good thing for me to teach about compromise because, as A Course in Miracles says, that it's often necessary that you teach what you have to learn. So here we go. The process of compromise is one that is often viewed as one of achieving what my needs are without giving up too much, right? Making sure that I get what I want without giving ground on too much of what I think is important at least in my worldview. Well, that's one approach, and that is certainly an approach that often is taken in business. It's said that a good negotiation in business is achieved when the several parties involved leave the negotiating table dissatisfied. But that's not necessary. It's not necessary to get in the ring and duke it out to the point of both of you barely surviving, but coming out bruised and injured. So, in the process of compromise, let me just review what I consider to be important in compromise, and that, first of all, is know what your own needs are. What are your wants? What is it that you would like to come out of this intact? And that does sound easy, right? But we often get hung up on specific outcomes and barely acknowledging consciously, sometimes only unconsciously, acknowledging what we're trying to achieve with a given outcome. To pull an example out of thin air, I want dark gray on that wall, right? That's a need that I have. I want dark gray on that wall. Well, that's not really a need, is it? I mean, when it comes down to it, that I want dark gray on that wall is an outcome that comes from some perhaps barely acknowledged or not unacknowledged need that I have. And the need that I have may not be that adverse to what another person wants. But having the awareness of what our needs are and what our wants are before we jump to some perceived required outcome is an important step in the compromising process. Another thing that we need to do is to identify the gotta-haves, the deal breakers of our needs and our wants. Actually, gotta-haves would be one of our wants that is in the category of a need. But identifying our deal breakers in this process, and then to listen, really listen to what the other person is wanting, but not to be satisfied with what the other's outcome is, but to also understand what their underlying needs are. And so we listen carefully and we ask questions and we delve into what the outcome desired by the other to identify what what their needs are. And then we go where the common ground is of what our overlaid needs of the two parties or several parties that are involved, and then being willing to say yes to those things that the other person needs. That's not a deal breaker for us, because that saying yes opens the door to more yeses. It opens the door to a mutually agreed conclusion that is a win-win for both. Now that sounds simple and right. I mean, it's at least straightforward. Maybe not simple, but at least it's straightforward. And the question is, what is spiritual about this process? Well, it's the stuff between the lines. It's the process. It's the activity within ourselves that brings us to where compromise is a spiritual practice. Yesterday, I had a call from a good friend who is a longtime Boulder resident. He's getting tired of his job. He's been in this particular segment of industry for, well, all of his working life. And he's frankly just getting burned out. You know, in his words, there's only so much of this that I can do. That I've tread every inch of this field that I've been working in, and I'm looking for something more fulfilling. So he's thinking of moving to the mountains and for a change of pace. A change of pace. Okay, I can certainly relate to that. He's been a buyer in a moderately sized family-owned business for the last 20 years or so. And prior to that, he was working in the same field with another company. But this has been what he has known. And when he was saying that he was needing more personal fulfillment than what he's getting, the question came to mind, or the adage came to mind, that wherever you go, there you are. That is that we have this perception that, you know, if I just move to some other place, I'm going to find more excitement. Well, my experience has been that when you move to another place, stress increases. If nothing else, then, you know, where's the grocery store, and what's the layout of the grocery store, and where's my favorite restaurant now, and who's my doctor now, and so on. So I think most of us have been there, where we have moved to a new locale, and it takes time to get used to the fact that there we are. I mean, Pam is experiencing that with her dad. That we think that things will be better if we just get out of town. But the fact is that wherever we go, our personal worldview, our personal needs, our personal desires are not going to change a whole lot. And so the question became, well, what is it about your present job that is not fulfilling? And I mentioned to him that many great teachers from many different spiritual traditions have declared that personal fulfillment comes not from what you do, but from what you achieve. And the achievement of greatest personal fulfillment arises from serving others. So I suggested to him that what he might want to do is to reconsider what he does now in the context of how can I serve others, not from a corporate customer service perspective, but rather from the perspective of here is this human being that is in front of me right now. How can I help this person have a more fulfilling experience? How can I enhance the life of this person? So he's a buyer and a department manager, but primarily a buyer. He does have people working for him, but his primary task is to buy product. And so I suggested to him that it wasn't so much about making sure the shelves were full, but how about looking at it as providing a spectrum of products so that each person that approaches the shelf can find that product that is going to be most meaningful to them, most life-enhancing to them. And he thought that was an interesting approach. And I bring this story up because really at the heart of my advice to him was this concept of spiritual compromise. How can I enhance the life of the other? So instead of going into a negotiation, regardless of whether it's do we buy almond milk flavored or do we buy it unflavored, when we go into a negotiation, that we look at the negotiation as a means of satisfying the needs of the other rather than achieving what I want, the outcome that I want. So I want that wall to be a dark gray. Dark may not be a need that I have. It may be that I really wanted contrast. Right? I wanted contrast on this wall versus that wall, or this wall versus, in our case, the cabinets that we have just completed the not reconstruction, but renovation of. So having identified what my underlying needs are rather than my desired outcome gives me the opportunity, gives me the flexibility to then step back and say, how can I serve the needs of the other? Now, remember, I said that I need to teach what I need to learn. And so this relationship that we have with the other person, whether it be a fleeting relationship of a negotiation on whether or not you're going to pay your parking ticket, or it is something that is more engaging, lifelong engaging. Identifying the needs of the other is a means of our being able to step forth and serve what is important to them. So, all right, that's the process of negotiation. But between the lines, what we are doing if we are intent upon enhancing the life of the other is to understand what their needs are, not just as an item list, but rather how does it comport with their worldview? How is their set of needs working with their perception of what is real in their lives? And coming to a greater understanding of their fears. Oftentimes needs are arising from some fears that we have, but being able to understand through our questioning, through our suggestions of alternative approaches that or alternative outcomes, that will allow us to gain a greater understanding of who this person is. What is their worldview? What are their gotta-haves for their life, for them to feel that their life is being enhanced? And that right there is really the spiritual basis of tit for tat. It is arriving at an understanding of the other person and letting go of your own demand that your worldview be accommodated. So as we let go of that requirement, what starts to happen is that this ego-encapsulated being that we perceive ourselves to be, that capsule starts to dissolve. And when that capsule starts to dissolve, the ego goes crazy. The ego gets all up in arms, literally. But it is an opportunity for us to move closer to the realization that we're all in this together, that you and I are one. I just received my new license plate, my vanity license plate this week, much to the chagrin of Linda. You and I are one. And so now what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to slow down. I'm going to have to be more considerate of other drivers on the road, because I don't want to be moving through life with this echo of hypocrisy ringing in my ears. So we approach our interactions to achieve some mutually assured or mutually agreed upon outcome in the context of, how can I help you? How can I help you have a more fulfilling life? It's not up to us to try to dissolve the shell of their ego, right? It's only up to us to determine how we approach our lives, how we allow our ego to subside, to diminish to the point of extinction in terms of our demand that I be served. And so that's the spiritual practice of compromise, is to move into a space, voluntarily move into a space where my concern is what you need. So what are your thoughts about this? How does this strike you? Is this an approach that you commonly use, or is this something new for your consideration? I open the floor. That's metaphorically speaking. I open a bunch of floors, actually.
Well, yeah, I can just say a word. Dick and I have a thing where he challenges me a lot with things that I say or that I'm talking about. And sometimes I'll say to him, just say yes. Just say yes. And this conversation this talk that you're doing today kind of really ties into that very well, because I think looking at what the other person is needing, and Dick identified that while you were talking, He said, yeah, okay, that's a different point of view. And it's not letting the other person be selfish. It's just kind of trying to see where they're coming from. And that's a very good approach to me. Helpful. Right?
Being able to say yes to the other person, it has amazing power to open the door for further compromise.
Yep.
So remember that, Dick.
As you see me looking your way.
I can hear you looking my way.
Yeah.
We've been around each other for a while. That is also something that is very difficult to do, is to just say yes. Because that really opens up an individual. I mean, you lose all power at that point. And you're very vulnerable.
You feel like you lose power, right?
Yes.
Yes. And paradoxically, it has been found that saying yes is a means of gaining power. And it's one of those paradoxes of human relationships where giving ground is actually gaining territory.
I must be a troglodyte, because I can't do that very easily. Troglodyte.
Well, at least you're an honest troglodyte. Okay.
Well, I can say yes with a smile on my face, I guess.
Yeah. That's right.
Sometimes saying yes is just a outright shock to the other person. So I happen to live with a man who often says yes to me, and coming out of other relationships where I really had to beef up the argument and go through all my persuasive powers to get what I wanted. And, when I get a yes right off, I mean, it almost knocks me off my feet.
Yeah, that's true.
And I'm like, okay, well, why did I sweat that one so much?
Right. I could have saved time and not have to go through all that preparation.
That and a lot of hair.
Anyone else?
I read a book. Oh, go ahead. I was going to say I read a book many years ago when the kids were young. And it was really about what you were saying, the power of saying yes. And for the kids, I mean, if they wanted to wear one green sock and one blue sock, sure, go ahead. It wasn't worth the argument, so that when you did finally say no about something, they knew you were serious. And I found it to be the same in relationships. If it's not anything big, why sweat it? Save that no for when you really are, stuck on that. So.
Yeah, that's why it's important to know what your absolute needs are, your deal breakers are, so that the other stuff can be parts of the yes.
Pick your battles.
Pick your battle.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Life's way too short to argue all the time. And maybe that's why I'm single. I just don't like to argue. So.
You've been too surprising with your yeses, huh?
I guess. A lot of people like to argue. I don't.
Anyone else? So that's the point, is that getting to yes, it can often be an easy approach. It just takes your willingness to let go of what you perceive to be, as Dick earlier said, what you perceive to be personal power. Let's leave it there. I'd like to share a song that is presented by Faith Rivera and Harold Payne. Let's go over to Stand Together.
of your highest calling. Be the hope of a new day dawning. We're the ones who can make a difference. Let's stand together. Share your gifts with the world that's waiting for a change that we're all creating. It's a moment for our greatness. Let's stand together now.
Every day's a chance to do something amazing, to feel your passion blazing and shine.
Aim with every vision, dance in new directions, explode to new heights in your mind.
I will rise up with you today.
Lift up my voice.
Lift up my voice and boldly say, we are the ones we've been waiting for.
Live the dream of your highest calling. Be the hope of a new day dawning. We're the ones who can make a difference. Let's stand together. Share your gifts with the world that's waiting for a change that we're all creating. It's a moment for our greatness. Let's stand together now. Yeah. One dream, one voice, one heart, one word, one dream, one voice, one heart, one word. Stand together. One dream, one voice, one heart, one word. Stand together. Live the dream of your highest calling. Be the hope of a new day dawning. We're the ones who can make a difference. Let's stand together. Yeah, yeah. Share your gifts with the world that's waiting for a change that we're all creating. It's a moment for our greatness. Let's stand together now. Live together. Live the dream of a new day dawning. We're the ones who can make a difference. Let's stand together now. Share your gifts with the world that's waiting for a change that we're all creating. It's a moment for our greatness. Let's stand together now. Stand together.
Live the dream.
We're the ones who can make a difference. Let's stand together now. Stand together.
With that in mind, let's take a few moments here to ponder that as we consider some activity of compromise that we've been engaged in the past. If it has ended dissatisfactorily or unsatisfactorily, perhaps that is a good one to use. Let's bring to mind that time, that compromise when you left the table dissatisfied. Consider the circumstances, consider the person, people involved, and reimagine, re-image that interaction. What if that interaction was founded on the principle of let's stand together? Let's achieve that new vision together. Let's work with each other to come to that win-win for both of us. How would that compromise have gone? What would it have taken for you to say yes to some modest required need? What would it have taken to allow the other the satisfaction of having one of their closely held needs met. What would you have to have given up? And what impact would that giving up have on your life today? Consider that compromise as a spiritual experience, a spiritual exercise. How would that have played out? Replay in your mind as best you can an alternative approach from the one that occurred. What if you had said yes to that stated need of the other? What if you had said yes? Imagine them then saying yes to one of your needs. And then imagine you responding with a yes to another of their needs. Allow the scenario to play out where you end the conversation and you look at the outcome, perhaps even better than what your desired outcome was. Perhaps your dark gray wall was just fine as a medium gray wall. How can you use that imagined alternative scenario the next time someone says, I need this, and you say, I need that, and the two of you come to a mutually agreed conclusion? Oh, let's do this over here, or that over there. How does that feel? What if your intention was to enhance the life of the other? What if that becomes a basis for any compromise you engage? Could that help you dissolve the shell of your ego? Could that help you take one small step towards the realization that the other and you can stand together to achieve this new vision? Indeed, that change rests with you, solely you. What are you willing to give up to achieve that greater realization of who you really are. Rest with that question for a moment. What are you willing to give up to arrive at a new understanding of who you are? Allow that to become part of your modus operandi. You have this ability right now to say yes to the other. As we come back to this time and space, I'd like to come back to sharing with you our offering blessing. So recognizing the value of this community to you, and recognizing the value of this community to others. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. I give in love because I trust in God. And once again, you can make your contributions through the link, through the first article in the newsletter. You can go to our website, check the donate button, or you can go to tinyurl.com/LWDonate. Thank you for being here. And Doug, if you would, our closing benediction. Unmute yourself. There you go.
And let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With God as creator, family all are we. Let us walk with each other, perfect harmony. Peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
And our prayer for protection. Together, please. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. Thank you, and
That's a nice voice. Okay.
yay God. Okay, if you
There
would,
you go.
do the honors.
As we prepare to release our circle and extinguish this flame, we honor the divine light that it represents, and we carry that light within us into the world to protect us, to illuminate us, and to guide our actions.
Thank you.
Amen.
And